Chinese stock market plunge is the talk of the day. This is probably the worst news that can happen for the CCP before Chinese New Year. Why? Because their 2024 recovery ain't happening, and this whole thing is a black hole. Welcome to China Insider, I'm David Zhang. Today I want to highlight the irony in the way that the Chinese Communist Party runs the economy. While they continue to ban people from bad-mouthing the economy, the Chinese stock market continues to fall. It's clear, communists don't know how to run the economy. Their only solution is to halt trading. Or maybe it's a lost in translation. Maybe they thought that a bearish market means good economy and a bullish market is a bad one. Just kidding. First of all, you really can't call China's stock market a stock market because the CCP doesn't play by market rules. It's not even a casino. At least there are rules for gambling too. Like, you can't see other players' hand. The Chinese stock market is more like a brothel. The issuance of new shares is like a madam who does whatever it takes to create a top brand and does not hesitate to throw away the integrity of the industry. The Chinese stock market has continued to plunge, especially the Shanghai Composite Index dropping below 2,700 points twice in 2 days, hitting a new low of 2653. Meanwhile, the CSI index dropped 7% since the beginning of 2024, and that's reaching the lowest since early 2019. And this is amid signs of panic selling and forced liquidation of leveraged trades. Now, before we continue, my partner Blueberry Creative has a New Year's tea sale. Right now, you can get a healthy tea at an amazing price. Specifically, I recommend this Taiwan High Mountain tea. It has a sweet floral taste profile. Even though it is a variety of oolong green tea, it's harvested at high altitude in Taiwan's Ali Mountain. And tea farmers work directly with us and sending their products directly here. Many brands out there promoting high mountain tea actually use a blend of Vietnamese and Taiwanese tea leaves, but this one is a 100% pure harvest from Taiwan. It's a great gift for your loved ones or just for yourself to enjoy. So check out the link in the description for the sale, as well as use code DAVID for 15% off all other products. You can also enjoy free shipping in the US if you spend $70 or more. All right, so why does this all matter? Well, the stock market in China, it's one of the indicators of the domestic economy. As we know, it's not doing so hot. In fact, the continuing plunge has destroyed lives of many middle-class people in China, those that essentially use their life savings to invest into the stock market. Now, China's stock market is essentially looting all of them in a devastating way because many investors thought that the 3,000 points was the bottom line because they thought that was where the political policies would defend itself. But this, of course, was deceived by the state propaganda saying that they would do everything to rescue the economy. Turns out it couldn't. So these people didn't sell until now, when they're once again led by the state to, they're not even allowed to sell anymore because the state has halted selling. So now essentially they've lost everything because the market is continuing to go down from this point. Now, this of course has not impacted the American or world economy as much. It's very interesting to see because there was a collapse back in 2015 that was able to bring down the global market. Yet this time, there was not even a splash found anywhere. So that really shows that the foreign capital has indeed achieved decoupling in the past few years, and the threat to the global economy from the CCP's detonation of its financial market has been significantly reduced. It's no longer a threat. And so China's finances objectively, you could say it's been abandoned by the international market. Now, just a quick context here, right? China has two types of shares. There's the A shares and the B shares. The A shares, also known as domestic shares, that's what we're mainly referring to today. Now, China's economy has always been about a funnel system. You've had foreign investments coming in with the money, which is then used to prop up the economy. But once that, they moved all the money towards the policies of state-owned economy. And so recently under Xi Jinping, they've shifted to focusing on the state before the private industry. And once they do that, they heavily abuse the private sector to the point where they're not really performing. And as we know, anything, anywhere that the government runs, whether that's postal service, tax, or even the DMV, it's always the most bloated yet useless time-consuming system. It's slow and resource-consuming. And so China is full of these types of very large corporations and companies. They're called state-owned enterprises or state-owned companies. Now, the reason the CCP set up the stock market to even begin with it wasn't to put on a good show for domestic companies and to actually let investors share the benefits like any normal society, but it was actually to help these desperately, terribly performing state-owned enterprises to get out of trouble, to essentially bail out using state-owned banks to get rid of the huge amounts of bad debts or non-performing loans. So to put it bluntly, they essentially use the stock market, all the money that they can gather, as a cash machine. So they take everybody, all these small investors, middle class investors, to basically funnel that money in. Now, later on, of course, we learned that there's interest groups, right? You had the National Development and Reform Commission, State Council, financial system, the media center, as well as these local dignitaries and entrepreneurs. These institutions and individuals, they all come in to try to fish for the dream of making a fortune. And they're not afraid of one-shot buying or selling. Therefore, they can just join forces all under the banner of political connections and behind-the-scenes dealings to act as both the referees and the participant. And in doing so, it essentially, when we talk about a game when it's rigged, right, it's considered unofficial or it's not qualified. In the case of China's stock market, that's a rigged machine to begin with from the get-go. So it's never a qualified market. Now, it's finally crumbling down before our eyes because that's all from their own doing. But still, even against all odds, I think the stock market is probably the most honest against all of the CCP's propaganda saying the economy is doing well. It's actually the only one showing the true colors of the economy. It's terrible. Now, this morning, the official Weibo account of Xinhua, China's state media, posted a photo of Olympic divers plunging downwards. And you can guess why that photo has since been banned, because it accidentally insinuated a plunging market. Now, larger investors are busy selling and they're running away, but smaller ones are not allowed to sell. Many internet users invested in the market. They ended up turning to Weibo, actually, in fact, under the US Embassy in China account on Weibo. Here, they expressed their frustration with the Chinese stock market. And this actually triggered a Weibo information warfare. As the censors were busy deleting comments, thousands more commented. Finally, the internet police took the measure to block access to the Weibo account of the US Embassy. Someone even got banned across his e-wallet app, his Weibo account, and through his phone's IMEI code and access to financial news on Sina, all because he commented something unrelated underneath the US Embassy's account. So, what in the social credit system with Chinese characteristics are we looking at here? You can simply be banned for posting something unrelated because they're so scared that people are sort of indirectly talking about the stock market. Now, this is really funny, right? Some of the comments here, I'll just read it to you under the US Embassy accounts. One of them says, "Can you send me some missiles to blow up the Shanghai Stock Exchange?" Another one says, "Can you use diplomacy to take over stock buyers?" And some even started to refer to the A shares, China's domestic shares, as northern Myanmar stocks, because that's a reference to the scams coming out of northern Myanmar. And others are referring to the US Embassy account as the Chinese version of the Wailing Wall of Chinese stock investors. Of course, that is the Western Wall of Jerusalem, but now they're saying that the US Embassy account is where Chinese people go to cry to. And now, as we have learned, because they censored the Weibo account of the US Embassy, people have flocked to the India Embassy Weibo account to do the exact same. So since they moved to the Indian's Embassy account, they're saying that, sorry, India, we've ever doubted you or disrespected India. And of course, we know that the reason is very clear. India is actually doing really well in their stock market, replacing China's at least. Now, in India's $4 trillion stock market, it's actually pulling in billions of dollars in both domestic and foreign money because investors flocking to a faster growing one, or the one that's not declining, alternative to China. And they're essentially brushing aside all the other risks like overpriced shares, election uncertainties, regulatory uncertainties, etc., just because they know that the biggest uncertainty right now is the Chinese economy. And some of them even pointed out, like comments appearing under the Japan and Taiwan Embassy Weibo accounts as well. For example, this one is from the Japanese Embassy account. A comment says, "Imperial Japanese Army, when are you coming to establish the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere?" So I guess desperate times call for desperate frenemies. Even Japan and the United States, both are considered enemies of the Chinese people in the eyes of the CCP, can be seen as friends in these times. I guess, when you need a savior, that's when you're being persecuted by the CCP, you have to run to the enemies. And the investors are really, really honest this time. They know what's up here. Anyways, so where does the crying plea of the Chinese stock investors go from this point on? Is it going to be like the South Korean embassy, maybe the South African embassy, or the Israeli embassy? Who knows? Anyways, the point is the Shanghai Composite Index, which is used to indicate the performance of the domestic market, it's trending downwards, right? And China recently started an unofficial campaign to defend the 2,700-point line. And of course, we know that's now been broken through twice. So looking at it, it looks like the 2,600 points defense is on the way, which, by the way, just a month ago, they were still talking about defending 3,000 points. It wasn't too long ago, right? The last time China's domestic shares dipped below 2,700 was actually in 2019 when the Trump trade war happened. Of course, that was a natural reflection in the market because, I mean, both China and the United States at the time had a relatively stable economy. So once the trade war broke out, it was obviously a big shock in the stock market, and so it dipped. But of course, it quickly rebounded. This time, however, there isn't a bottom line that's visible. If the 2019 dip was a roller coaster ride, going to the bottom and then coming up, this 2024 plunge is more like down a cliff into the ocean. And so today, the question becomes, can the state bail out the stock market? And I mean, it's been all trying what China's been doing in the past 20 years or so, which is bailing out all these industries, right? Well, the number one answer to that is China's out of money. So technically, no. I mean, how do you pay for it? Well, you could say that maybe let's print more money, but that adds more fuel to the already burning flame that's, as we know now, is the heavy local hidden debt. And then even the CCP, as they tried for the past 2 years, it hasn't moved an inch on what, there's investor confidence, consumer confidence, none of that has improved. So maybe then you say we pay it with their foreign currency exchange reserves, right? Well, not really, because even at trillions of dollars in reserve, that's not nearly enough to cover the scale in which of the three baggage that's pulling the economy down. Or how about maybe let's sell some state-owned companies to the private industry? Well, those that pay better do so in cash, otherwise it won't be a productive one. So in reality, nobody has billions of dollars of cash on hand. So the reality is this, right? The sheer size of the Chinese economy is being weighed down by three heavy baggages. The first one is the stock market. It's worth about $10 trillion. It was $11 trillion, but now, of course, it's declined. The real estate, worth about $130 trillion. And then banking, about $50 trillion. These are three heavy burdens, okay? It turns out there is trouble in the banks, of course. The problem is some of the banks, they've made bad loans. Now imagine if you lend your friend money and then he never pays you back because obviously you thought that he will pay you back because he'll get a job, but he never did. But that's the problem for the banks, right? They have a big hole in their system. $50 trillion, even if you bail out at 10% of that, so that's the non-performing loans or the bad debt, that's still $5 trillion. That's way more than what you have for the foreign currency reserve, which is sitting at around $3 trillion. And that's just one part of that, right? We haven't even touched the real estate sector, which is essentially doomed. That's a much bigger hole. What about the Chinese stock market? None of these three heavy burdens can be bailed out. They can't do anything about it right now because there's no reasonable amount of money in the entire system to do this. The only thing that the Chinese government has done now is to freeze the market. They try to drag things out, right? Today, Reuters reported that the Chinese brokers have restricted cross-border swaps as stocks plunge. And that basically is just using artificial means, political power to limit selling or shorting the market. In what world, though, is a stock market not allowed to sell? Apparently in China. Like I said, it's not really a stock market. It's more like you say a scam, or maybe it's a manipulated system. Because these officials know that they don't have the money to fix this in reality, but they also know that what they're doing right now is just buying time by freezing the market and hoping that something like a miracle would take place. So that's the overall trend of investments leaving China, so that now there's not enough money in the system. And of course, we know that the talk on Wall Street is, of course, getting money out too. So we're going to see this get worse and worse. And that's why you see an overall increase in points in the market like Japan, India, around Asia, right? The Chinese market goes down, these markets go up because they're shifting investments to these countries while China's market continues to die down. In my view, though, this isn't actually the end. Back in 1999, before the WTO accepted China into its membership, the stock shares were in like the thousands points range. So we're far from seeing the bottom of this. Anyways, that's it today for the talk on the Chinese stock market plunging to death. And if you enjoy the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, bye-bye.